Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I've been spending the week with the 2017 Lincoln MKZ. It's a car I've been excited to drive for a while because I've just never driven one. And with the new redesign and a lot of new features inside and out, it's definitely worth a look. We've got to talk about styling here just a little bit because this got a heavy redesign for 2017. An all-new face, what they call the new face of Lincoln. A large chrome grille with a little bit of a notch there at the bottom, big Lincoln emblem. Now standard headlights on the Lincoln MKZ are HID with an LED signature lamp, but these are the optional LED headlights that really have a completely different look to them, and when you turn them on, there's a lot of complexity going on there, and they're actually quite attractive, but there is something about those headlights that we'll talk about a little bit later in the test drive, so stick around. The rest of the front end here is virtually identical to what you're going to see with the new Continental. Lincoln has made pretty good strides in making sure that those cars do look very similar, and as new Lincolns come out in the future, this is the face that we're going to be seeing on them. As we come around the corner here, this has 19-inch wheels. These are part of a package, so they are an upgraded wheel. As we come down the side here into the rear, you can see that they really didn't redesign this car out here the way they did up front. Not a bad thing. It's still a pretty good looking car from this angle. It just doesn't quite match up in style, I don't think. Now the rear bumper back here does have dual exhausts in it. One thing I do want to point out here is, unlike the Fusion that this car does share a platform architecture with, the lift-over height here on this trunk is actually pretty high. It's got a pretty small opening back here in my opinion. Not a big deal, but if you're somebody who travels and does a lot of road trips and therefore lots of luggage, that is something to keep in mind. It's just a little bit different than the Fusion. It just goes to show that they don't always make these cars exactly the same with different badges. Now one thing that this car does have that's a rather interesting detail is the panoramic roof. A lot of cars in this class have them, but this one opens. It's an entire single panel glass roof that slides down over the back window here, and you've probably seen them driving around. It's a little bit different, but it's nice when you're sitting inside to have that entire roof open. The interior of the MKZ is actually a very interesting place to be, and that's because it offers a lot of visuals going on. It's got a dash that is unique from the Ford Fusion that the car is based on, but we've got genuine materials here, genuine aluminum here on the console, genuine wood up there on the dash, as well as the door panels. And so they've really gone a long way to make sure the car felt premium, and this being a mid-grade trim, the Reserve, it does have a few more things going on in terms of finish. This car does have a luxury package on it, so I've got a lot of extra options, a lot of extra features here. These seats, they're heated and ventilated up front, and I've got a power tilt and telescoping steering wheel with paddle shifters. It's got a nice feel to it, nice leather, and it is heated because we also have the climate package. Storage, very good in here. I've got nice big cup holders here, a small little cubby right here. Down here in the center console, also as expected, a nice big storage area there. But the big thing here is down here below the console, you've got a flying console here where down below you can put a lot of different things. A lady can put a purse down there. If you're traveling on a road trip, you can put all sorts of things down there. There's just a large amount of space down there. Now, as far as comfort's concerned, these are the multi-contour seats. A lot going on with these seats. Here on the touch screen as well as on the side, you can adjust these things in almost infinite ways. And it didn't take me very long to get these to a place where I'm just fine sitting here. And of course, you do have memory settings. So if you had more than one driver in the household, it makes sense to be able to really spend time getting this where you want it, save it. And that does, of course, save also with your steering wheel. The back seat back here, the first thing I noticed is it feels a little bit snug compared to, say, like a Lexus ES. My legroom here is reasonably good, but these seats are about halfway forward, halfway back. They can come back quite a bit more, and as you can see, my knees would literally be up against these seats if that were to happen. Headroom also, a little bit on the shallow side, partly because of the panoramic roof that's here, also because of the sloping roofline. Two different things. And the seating height, we're actually pretty high for a sedan. A lot of times you sit down a lot lower, and so in that way my knees aren't perched up, and so the seating position itself, not too uncomfortable. Now there are some amenities back here, HVAC vents, heated seats here on this particular trim grade. Now these seats, they do fold down in a 60-40 split as you'd expect. Trunk space is actually pretty big in this car, and the best thing is there's actually a spare tire under there. And again, I'll point out the fact that the lift-over height getting into that trunk is a little bit high, I think, and the opening somewhat small. Even though I love the fact that they've got genuine materials here and the switchgear quality is very good, there were a few areas here that I found that the fit and finish could be improved a little bit. Little gaps here and there, things like that. Didn't always match up from one side to the other, things like that. So overall, interior gets 4 out of 5 stars. On the topic of infotainment, navigation, and audio, this has a lot going on here. This has got one of the top-of-the-line systems from Lincoln. It's got Rebel audio, it has voice-activated navigation, and it also now is Sync 3, which is a great thing because the old My Lincoln Touch or My Ford Touch that used to be in these cars, this is much easier in terms of finding what you want on the menus, operating it. You've got hard controls here, volume, tuning, and so it doesn't force you to dig into a lot of menus and touchscreen when you don't really need to. You can just do the simple things pretty quickly. Now, audio quality on this isn't quite up to, I don't know, I don't want to say hype, but I'm told that the Rebel audio, this is a Harman Kardon brand, their top level of speaker and hardware, but it didn't really impress me all that much. They do look very pretty though in the door panels. That said, the one thing I do need to point out here is visibility on this system is a little bit on the difficult side because it is a dark background, it's in the sun, so you do get glare on the screen, which makes it a little bit difficult to see some of those graphics during the daytime. Overall though, infotainment gets 4 out of 5 stars. What's under the hood of our tester is one of 2 engines available in the MKZ. This one is the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine with 245 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque by virtue of turbocharging and direct injection. Optioned here is all-wheel drive, and this comes with a 6-speed automatic transmission. As equipped, it's rated at 20 mpg city, 28 mpg highway, and 23 mpg combined. So the question I always ask right out of the gate is, how does it go? Not bad. And I'm speeding, and I shouldn't be. So it has a nice little punch. 245 horsepower isn't the most for a car this heavy, especially with the all-wheel drive system, but the good news is it's got a lot of torque, and the all-wheel drive system does a pretty good job of keeping that from turning into torque steer, so I was pretty happy with that. Now this does have paddle shifters, and more important than that even, it has a sport mode here on the dash-mounted transmission selector. No lever, they're push buttons, and when you put it in sport, it's a lot snappier when you put your foot down, a lot less lag. And I'm speeding again. And it holds your gear, as you can tell. That's why it's buzzing. Which gets us to the fact that we are in a 4-cylinder car. This is a luxury car, but a 4-cylinder, and that's just something that automakers struggle with a lot because they have to make it refined. And it does remain pretty quiet and pretty refined unless you really start revving it, at which point it starts getting a little buzzier than you'd think you'd expect in a car like this. Now, fuel economy, 23 is what it's rated at in my week with it. Before I started driving a little quicker here for the camera, I actually achieved 21, a little bit less than promised. So when it comes to rating the powertrain, I'm impressed with the refinement for what it is. Now the V6 twin turbo, probably a little bit smoother, but at the same time, that engine quite a bit thirstier. I think that goes without saying. Anyway, powertrain gets 4 out of 5 stars. When it comes to ride and handling, this has the Lincoln Drive Control, the adjustable suspension. You can set it on comfort, you can set it on normal, or you can set it on sport. Now, in driving around this week, I've kept it on sport at all times because that is my preference. It just feels more natural there, and that's because more often than not, there's a reason why springs and dampers are tuned together as one, so that they're in harmony with one another. Here what happens when you adjust the dampers, the spring rates stay the same. So what happens is if you're on sport and you dial it down to normal or you dial it down to comfort, the springs are still just as stiff when you go over bumps. The difference is you have less body control. When it comes to road noise, it's pretty quiet unless you get over rougher pavement. Wind noise, very good. This panoramic roof, I don't hear a thing out of it on highway speeds. I was pretty impressed with that. And the steering feel, also reasonably good for a car like this. So chassis gets 4 out of 5 stars. On the matter of quality, there were a few things that caught my eye here that really I didn't think come up to the price level of this car. The first thing, I did notice the metallic and the paint wasn't quite spread evenly in some places when the light hits it just right. Fit and finish inside and out, reasonably good, but there were a few areas I think that they could improve on. So overall, quality comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. Now, safety is always something I like to talk about, even though it's not part of the scoring for the test drive, and I actually learned something new when I was looking up the information on this. You see, it's an IIHS top safety pick, but not a top safety pick plus. Why is that? Well, it does get good in all the crash tests, and it has a superior level of crash prevention systems, but IIHS now rates headlights this year, and they have to have a good rating for headlights. These headlights, especially these that are optional on this, only got a marginal rating. So that's why this car does not make a top safety pick plus. Now, that doesn't mean it's not crash worthy. It just means that the IIHS has raised the bar one more time, and now headlights are part of the game. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the Lincoln MKZ, I got to tell you, I was pretty impressed overall with the variety of features that are available here, the variety of equipment, and the variety of colors and all sorts of different ways you can make this car your own. There are very few cars in this class that offer the range of choices that this has. Now, this one here, about mid-level, $53,000 and some change. You can spend a lot less, and you can spend a lot more if you go up into the black label, and maybe with that more powerful engine. So, here in mid-range, I think this offers a lot of features for the money, and so I put value at 5 stars. When you put that in, with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4 stars for the review. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. All right, my friends, if you like the test drive you just saw, I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I test drive 1 or 2 cars a week, so there's always something new. Or click right there, see my latest test drive. Either way, stay tuned.